For those at home, our children's pastor, interim youth pastor, working, cooking food pastor, janitorial pastor, pastor to the daycare. We could go on.
Yeah, I was told it's duties as assigned pastor. Duties as assigned pastor. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Well, good morning again and Merry Christmas. This morning I thought we would, of course, talk about Christmas. I mean, we could talk about David and Goliath or something if we wanted to, but, we get this chance. Let's talk about Christmas. So, angels and shepherds and mangers, oh my. If you close your eyes and imagine that instead of my voice, it's that movie trailer guy's voice. In a land far away, a young couple travels with a day till the young woman gives birth. The king has unexpected visitors from the men of the Orient who give him disturbing news of a new king being born. The race is on to find this child. Will good win over evil? Will the family find a place to stay? Will the child king be born safe from Herod the evil king? And while this may sound like the next greatest adventure movie coming out, it's actually the greatest gift ever given on that very first Christmas. And growing up, the Bible, it's always been such a great action story. If you ever want to find the greatest action, look in the Bible. There's some pretty cool stories. And this is one of those stories. So last night, Pastor Russ talked about in his sermon how gifts come in some of the greatest gifts come in small packages. And today we're going to be talking about how Jesus was that greatest gift ever given. He's been the greatest gift ever given in the history of gift giving. And so this morning I want to start. What is your favorite gift that you have ever been given? I'll start with mine. Years and years ago, growing up in our family, there was a Christmas where money was very, very tight. And so my family, instead of going out and buying new presents, my parents decided to re-gift presents. So they found stuff from their past to give us kids. And so my older sisters got age-appropriate things for them. Like Pastor was talking about age-appropriate gifts. Yep. Theirs were age-appropriate to them. And then mine was age-appropriate to me. I would think I was about 10 years old when this was. And it was a glass doll that was my mom's when she was about 10 years old. And it was the most precious gift to me. And I still have that. Of the few things that I have still of my childhood, I kind of started getting rid of a lot of my stuff. That's one of the few things I have because that means so much. So shout it out. What is one of your favorite gifts you've ever been given? Anyone have one of their favorite gifts? A bicycle, right? A doll. Anyone underwear? Socks. As an adult, those don't seem as bad of items anymore. Like sock prices are way more than I received. Some of the greatest gifts, maybe car, maybe a new oven. I know that's one of my mom's rule is she doesn't want kitchen appliances or cleaning appliances from my dad for Christmas. Just don't do it. Now, us kids, we can give those. That's fine. Just not parent to parent. Some people really love to receive gifts, as Pastor talked about. That's okay. That's a great thing to love to receive gifts. Other people really, really love to give gifts. I'm on that side. I really, really love to give gifts. That's my love language. And God was that ultimate gift giver. And his greatest gift was given that very first Christmas morning over 2,000 years ago. And I know you know all of this. I know you know it. You probably could tell it back to me perfect. There's that video, if you want to go out and watch it afterwards, of the kids telling the Christmas story and then the adults acting it out. I know you know this story, but I wanted to experience this story with you this morning of the greatest gift ever given that we're a part of. It's a story that, yes, it happened 2,000 years ago, but we're still a part of it today. So the story of the greatest gift ever given starts with a family, and that family is in Luke chapter 2. And it reads, In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went out to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. That's what we celebrate this morning. Mary gave birth to the greatest gift that God could ever give the world. He gave himself. He knew what would happen 33 years later after that first Christmas morning. He knew what was going to happen. He knew that he would die on the cross. He knew the suffering that would happen. He knew Easter was coming. But God gave himself. He gave Jesus to the world on that first Christmas. That family, Mary, a young woman, had an angel tell her she was going to have God's child. Her fiance, Joseph, had made a choice even before an angel appeared to him. He had made a choice to not shame this young woman when he found out she was pregnant. Then an angel appeared to him and told him that it was a gift from God and that Joseph was to take care of Mary and take care of the Son of God, to take care of the Messiah, to save the Messiah himself when they escaped to Egypt. The Messiah was sent to save the world. They left their home and they traveled to Bethlehem, where she had a baby. Men from the east appeared, and after the men leaving, Joseph had a dream, and they had to leave for Egypt to keep the greatest gift safe. This couple, this young man and woman, were entrusted with the Messiah, the King of Kings, but he was a baby. I have the pleasure of working with our babies at our nursery, at our daycare. And we have some bigger babies, and then we have some really little babies. I love the big babies. The little babies scare me. And I got to tell you why. Because those little babies, I feel like if I just hold them wrong, they're going to break. Yeah, those big babies, they're fine. They're fine. Jesus was a baby. He was that little itsy-bitsy thing that his head couldn't stand up straight. His body just kind of slumped over on its own. That was the Messiah. He had to rely on this young woman and this young man. The greatest gift ever given was in the most helpless state that we are ever in. A baby, Savior of the world, who gave himself to the world, knowing how broken it was and how broken it continued to be. But he still chose us. He still chose us. To this day, he still chooses us, and he's still going to choose us tomorrow. Because he knows we're going to mess up tomorrow. I'm sorry. If you thought you were going to be perfect tomorrow, I'm sorry you're not. You can try. I encourage you, try. But when you're not, know that God still chooses you. I want to spend a couple more minutes, and we've had this nativity scene behind us all of Christmas season. I want to spend some minutes talking about the other men on the side of the nativity, our shepherds and our wise men, and what it means for us that the shepherd and the wise men were a part of this young family's nativity, their first Christmas. So the shepherds, I'm going to give you the Natasha version of the shepherd's story, and it's kind of kid pastor version of the shepherd's story. So the shepherds were known as the unclean of the town, and Pastor touched on this last night. They were unclean because they were around animals. They couldn't go into the temple without spending time being cleansed. They weren't really a part of the society of the town. But the same time as they were part of the society, they also played a huge part in the society because they raised the lambs for Jerusalem, for the temple. They raised the lambs for the temple, for the salvation of the Jews. With Bethlehem being outside of Jerusalem, they would be in charge of raising these perfect lambs. The shepherds knew the great need for the Messiah because they knew how many lambs were required every single day at the temple. They knew the great need for God. They knew the numbers. They knew how much Israel needed salvation. So here are the shepherds of Bethlehem outside the city on the hill doing their thing, watching the sheep, getting ready for a long night of protecting their sheep from lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. And if you're used to being in the dark, hundreds of sheep around you without electricity, then suddenly a bright light appears and heavenly beings are telling you not to be afraid. My first instinct would be to scream. And even if you tell me don't be afraid, maybe they have some calming power that just calms you down, but I would still be afraid. But they tell them to not be afraid. It would be quite shocking. The angel tells you that a baby has been born in a town that you work in, and that this is a very special baby, because babies are born in the town every day. But this baby is a gift, God's gift to the world. This is the gift that will save the world, the Messiah, that he is God as human. More angels appear and they sing and it goes dark again. So it's suddenly very bright and then it goes dark again. You decide as a group to go down and see this baby. And you find this baby just like the angels had said, lying in a manger, wrapped in swaddling cloth. And you praise God because you know how much Israel needs this. You know how much the country you love, the country you work for, needs this. The gift is for everyone, no matter where you come from or where you are at. Jesus came for you. Because these shepherds were not accepted in the town that they lived in. But the angels appeared to them. The angels chose them to send the message out. We know that we are invited into this group because of those shepherds. And because of this next group, the wise men. Where exactly they come from, we're not exactly sure. We do know that they were astronomers who followed a star and they understood the prophets and the prophecies that the prophets had told about the Messiah, the King of the Jews. They saw the star that had signified that the Messiah, King of the Jews, had been born, and they knew the importance of what was going on, and they knew that they had to be involved. Have you ever seen something really important happening and you just want to be there? Like, seen videos of like people who there's like a proposal going on, and then everybody like crowds the proposal. Or there's a medical emergency and everybody crowds the medical emergency. As humans, we want to be involved in what's going on. We're pulled to action, just like these wise men were. They left their homes. They traveled far from the east to Rome, held Israel. They approached the capital of Jerusalem. And they did the thing that they thought best. Who would know where this king was born? The governor, right? He would know. He knows what's going on in his country. So they go in. Where's the king? The governor says, "What king?" They were shocked to discover that Herod was clueless about what was going on. He had to call his own wise men. Guys who I'm ignoring, come on. What are they talking about? Who's taking my throne? And then Herod got very, very interested, and not in a good way. Not for the right reasons. But Herod pointed them towards Bethlehem, where the prophecy had told them to go. And then he told them to return once they had found this baby, so that he could go and praise the new king born. He wanted to see the child himself, of course. No motive besides that, of course not. So the wise men left Herod and Jerusalem, and they found this child and this family, and they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gifts that I asked the daycare kids at chapel the other day, what would you give a baby? And they said blankets, bottles, race cars. And I'm like, well, would you give him gold? And they're like, no. Would you give him frankincense? And they said, what's that? I'm like, well, it's a smelly spice. And they said, no, I don't want that. These things looked forward to what was going to happen in his life. Gifts that looked into his future ministry, as gold signified the statue as a king. Though he chose to be a humble king, he never wore a gold crown. He never rode in on a giant steed. Frankincense and myrrh that foreshadowed his sacrifice and burial. But they came to see the greatest gift ever given that was also given to them. It wasn't just given to the Jews, but it was given to the Gentiles. But they also brought him gifts. See, unlike the shepherds who had come to see the gifts, they brought him gifts. And we can bring our gifts to God. And I'm not talking about frankincense and myrrh, though if you can find it, maybe. I'm talking about your time, your skill sets. Maybe having a conversation with someone. Hanging out with babies on Sunday in our nursery, or packing up food on Tuesdays for our food bank, or talking with that stranger who needs help in line at the grocery store, or someone on the road who just looks like they're in need of someone to listen. We rejoice in the big G gift, the God gift. And we bring our gifts, what we have and what we have been given to Christ for him to use. The greatest gift ever given was given for all. There are many groups involved in this first Christmas. There's that young couple, there's the shepherds who were the outcast in their community, there were the wise men from the east. But those three groups represent us. They represent the Jews, the Gentiles, the outcasts, the rich, the poor, the young, the old. And as we celebrate Christmas this morning, we get a unique opportunity to celebrate that first Christmas morning together. As we head out this Christmas and we get to hang out with friends and family, let us remember that the greatest gift ever given on Christmas was that gift of Jesus. That what we're celebrating this morning and every day is Jesus. Because he didn't just come for Christmas. He came for that 365. Tanya and I were driving last night after Christmas Eve service to go get food, and nothing was open, to our great shock. We were getting a little angry. And we pulled up to a light, and we looked over, and Tanya shouted out in the car. She said, "Bigfoot's open!" It's a coffee shop, the Bigfoot Java coffee shop. It's like, that's the thing that's open right now? It's open 24/7? God is our 24/7. Jesus was our gift. 365 days of the year, he is with us. He is Emmanuel. So I want to say this morning, Merry Christmas. Receive that gift. Let us rejoice in that gift. That greatest gift ever given, because it was given for all, for you, for me, for that friend down the road, for that enemy across the street. It was given for that person in your life who you've been praying about for years and years. It was given for all. And God is still here. And we are still a part of that story, of that nativity story 2,000 years ago. And that's something very amazing. And it's something that we get to celebrate and rejoice in this morning. So Merry Christmas, Lake Stevens Assembly. And I want to just invite Pastor Russ up here to close out this service, Christmas service, with a prayer. And I'd like to thank him for the opportunity to just share with you this morning.
Great job. Great job. Why don't you stand? I'm going to